All right, I know what you're thinking, but I'm not an Apple guy. Just let me explain. Most of you are probably thinking, this guy's full of shit. And you'd be right, except for the fact that there's one thing in common about all these things on my desk. Can you guess what it is? All these Apple products are mobile devices, and that's kind of the point of this video and why it's important I explain why I decided to buy an M1 MacBook Pro. Intro, MacBook Pro, M1. Roll the intro. For the record, this is the first Mac product I myself have ever purchased. I have definitely had my fair share of Mac products over the years, from iMacs, MacBooks, Mac Minis, and so on. I've even used a MacBook Pro for work for a little over a year, but deep down I've just always been a PC kind of guy. Until M1. This is the new MacBook Pro 13 with Apple Silicon, or M1. What's special about this MacBook over the rest? Well, this is the first MacBook to have an SoC designed and built by Apple themselves. Much like the A14 chip in the new iPhones, this M1 chip will allow Apple to squeeze out every ounce of performance and optimize it to the nth degree for Big Sur, Apple's newest version of macOS. This means huge performance gains over previous x86-based versions of the MacBook and increased efficiency that will allow us to continue working on the MacBook even faster without having to worry about plugging in after an hour or two, and that's a big deal, especially for creators and professionals who may not always be close to an outlet. All right, so let's talk about some of the improvements. This new chip is the first consumer-grade SoC to be used in a personal computer with a 5nm process. For reference, Intel, at the time of filming this video, is still primarily using a 14nm process. Shrinking the die down to 5nm means more transistors, less heat, and more power in a smaller package. With that being said, Apple has been able to cram 16 billion transistors inside of M1. This essentially translates to nearly 2 times the performance per watt than other chips in its class. But honestly, is anything even in the same class as M1 right now? Anyway, this is up to 2 times the CPU and GPU, non-discrete of course, performance of the previous MacBook. Yeah, you know, the one that just came out earlier this year. Oh, and did I mention that you can do all that while having up to 20 hours of video playback on a single charge? Pretty freaking insane if you ask me. With that kind of battery, you could binge watch every video on my channel in one charge. That reminds me, speaking of video, you should make sure to subscribe because you won't want to miss the full review of the new MacBook Pro as well as some other fun videos coming down the pipe. Okay, so this is great and all, but how much is it? We all know MacBooks are not budget-friendly laptops by any stretch of the imagination. This thing must be at least $1,600, $1,700, $1,800, right? Wrong. My MacBook Pro 13 came in just under $1,300. That's for a 256 gig internal SSD and 8 gigs of RAM. Not bad considering the performance of this MacBook is actually on par with a MacBook Pro 16 with an i9 processor, which by the way will run you about $2,800. Granted, for that price, you're not only getting a larger screen, you're also getting a discrete GPU, 16 gigs of RAM, and a terabyte of storage. But my point is that the M1 performs nearly as well as that i9 for almost half the price. That's pretty compelling when you consider that this is a laptop after all, which goes back to my original point. All the things on my desk are mobile devices. To be able to have the performance, or at least close, of an i9 processor, albeit a mobile one, for much less is actually insane. More so because this is Apple we're talking about. Despite it being roughly the same price as a similarly spec'd Dell XPS 13, the MacBook Pro has more battery life and better performance all around, which makes it a very compelling option for creatives who are on the go, but need top-notch performance without being tied to their charger. So all this sounds great, but what are the downsides? Surely it can't be all sunshine and rainbows, right? Well, for now, since M1 runs on the ARM architecture, we're stuck emulating x86-based apps through Apple's Rosetta 2 until developers begin rolling out Apple Silicon versions of their apps. This includes the Creative Cloud suite, which kind of sucks. However, this doesn't mean those apps run too slow to be useful. They just run at about 50 to 80% as fast, which in my testing didn't bother me when compared to my Surface laptop, so your mileage may vary. This is just for now, and these apps will only get faster when the M1 optimized versions start rolling out. The other downside is that this is a Mac, so if you don't like macOS like me, then this may not change your mind. It's still macOS and doesn't feel any different than previous versions to me, minus some slight updates. Although if you're willing to swallow your pride and give M1 a go, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, even if you're a hardcore PC user like myself. All right, let's close this video out. The new MacBook Pro with M1 is an exciting peek into the future of mobile processing. Surely the desktop versions will be impressive in their own right, but I don't plan to replace my custom PC anytime soon, which makes this MacBook a very exciting device to me. As you can probably tell by now, I'm a fan of Apple's mobile products because, well, they're arguably the best in their respective classes. The MacBook is now the newest entry into my collection of Apple products, but not because it's ever going to replace my desktop, but because it's a great extension to my existing mobile workflow. Prior to the MacBook, I was using a Microsoft Surface Laptop 2, and I ultimately stopped bringing it with me places because it just didn't perform. This MacBook, on the other hand, runs everything I need at least twice as fast as my Surface. You know, like Lightroom, Premiere, Photoshop, important stuff. Despite the fact that the Surface has an 8th Gen i7 and 8 gigs of RAM. Not only that, but the battery on this MacBook gives me the confidence to bring it anywhere, do anything, all without having to even worry if my charger's in my bag. And that's a pretty powerful thing when you're a creator on the go. So to that, I say, good job, Apple. This M1 line of products may not be for everyone, but for those looking to buy a new laptop without breaking the bank, the new MacBook Pro is an excellent option that will only get better as time goes on. Or so we hope. Only time will tell, so stick around. All right, so that's it. That's MacBook Pro with M1, an ultra light, ultra fast, long-lasting laptop that doesn't break the bank and will absolutely impress you no matter what kind of user you are. That's gonna be it from me. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and if you like this video, give it a big old thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, give it a big old thumbs down, and let me know in the comments below, what are your thoughts on the new MacBook Pro? I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Bye-bye. Peace out. Roll the outro. Boom, right there.